You've written a piece that speaks directly to that idea of a connection from the inside and the outside. And if theoretically, we talk about these as corrections institutes and rehabilitation, and obviously maintaining a relationship with people on the outside and feeling, that you have some semblance of a connection to the real to the world outside of prison, I guess I should say, is hugely important. And your story takes looks at a narrow aspect of that, but a hugely important one, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no other way to refer to corrections facilities other than human cages. And if you're in a cage, you're less likely to feel like a human the longer that you're in it. And simple things like a child's birthday card, handwritten in crayon, that you know was held by that child, that you can now hold if you're incarcerated, you can hang on your wall to look at. That's a huge thing. That's a reason to keep going. But increasingly, tactile mail is being taken out of prisoners' hands because of a profit motive.
And that that I mean that ends up being sort of the broad theme of the carceral state in this country. More and more, I would suggest. Give us a context, like and I think many people are familiar with these numbers, but you start your piece out with them, and they're important to contextualize exactly what we're talking about here. Where are we as a country, as a society, when it comes to incarcerating people?
We are number one with a bullet. We incarcerate more people, both per capita and in raw numbers, than even China, one of the worst authoritarian regimes on the planet, one of the worst human rights abusers on the planet, and has a population 4 times that of the United States. So that we actually have more people that in prison than China should be a national shame. It should be a bigger thing. We've had, dribs and drabs over the last 10 years or so of criminal justice reform, prison reform, sentencing reform, but nothing's really taken that's truly brought down the overall number of people we incarcerate or the number of laws that lead to incarceration. And life as an incarcerated person, as you said, ostensibly is about rehabilitation, but truly it's just punitive in this country. It's just about punishment. It's dehumanizing. And it makes people more vulnerable to the horrors of prison. Like if you lack hope, then you might not, be the best behaved prisoner. You may not get out as early as you might have if you were obeying the rules. And it can't be stressed enough that like the physical connection people have between both other human beings and physical objects is being slowly eroded in our carceral state. And they're doing it through, they're using drugs and security, as they often will, to enhance their own authority.
All right, so this is an amazing story, because I've heard stories of the enormous expense that's associated with phone calls in prison, and people need to understand that obviously when we talk about such a huge percentage of people in this country and raw numbers, I mean, it really is astonishing that China, just even on raw numbers, we beat them when they have 4 times the number of people who live in that country. You're talking about people who are very often coming from low-income communities, coming from Black or brown communities, and what, and I think we've seen this in the context just of COVID relief. What $600 can mean to a family. Well, when you start talking about phone calls that cost $7-8 per phone call. For folks who have no, obviously, means in which to make money in prison, maybe they're making pennies a day. This adds up. And so tell us about what happened. I guess it was about a year ago. The Trump administration's Bureau of Prisons launched a pilot program. And it's really sort of, tell us what the pilot program was, and then ostensibly why it was being piloted.
Okay, so in March 2020, the Trump administration's Bureau of Prisons, which is part of the Department of Justice, contracted with a company called Smart Communications, which is out of Tampa, Florida. And what Smart does simply is it intercepts prison mail, digitizes it, scans it, and then makes it available to an incarcerated person. Smart Communications CEO told me that they provide tablets to prisons and jails that they work with free of charge. But after a few free messages, there is a charge to access any photograph, any letter, emails. And the length of those emails matter. The attachments matter. It all adds up. It's a nickel and diming kind of thing. And so it was brought to my attention that this pilot program called Mail Guard, which is being used in 2 federal prisons and in Pennsylvania, it's widely used, that as often will happen with these pilot programs, they just kind of get sunsetted into permanent existence. They never officially, there's never a bill signing saying, we are now going to completely alter the way we treat our federally incarcerated people. It's just kind of there and doesn't seem to be going away. And I reached out to the Biden White House and the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons, and the closest thing I got to an answer was just a statement that said, from the Bureau of Prisons, a statement saying, yeah, we see a need for this. There is a drug problem in prisons. There is a security problem, and we'd like to keep this program going, though they didn't say whether or not they would be.
All right, so let's let's break this down a little bit. The Biden administration, to great fanfare, said that they were no longer engaging in private prisons for federal prisons. Like, what ostensibly was the reason for them to make this policy change? And we should be clear, it's only federal prisons. They haven't done the same when it comes to immigrant detention centers, is my understanding. And folks can go back, I think, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago and see pieces written about the private prison industry basically telling their shareholders, like, we see a big opportunity here with immigrant detentions. I mean, so this is really basically their business plan, and they had projections to this effect. But why ostensibly did the Biden administration say no more federal, we're not going to privatize federal prisons? I mean, what was the theory behind that?
It's been unpopular for a while, and it's been something that's been talked about since Obama was president, when Biden was vice president. And quite frankly, it's an easy sort of cosmetic solution to a much larger endemic problem. I don't want to give a wrong number, but the amount of prisoners in this country who are incarcerated in federal prisons is very, very low. And in private prisons, even less than that. So it's an important thing. It's an important executive order that Biden issued, ending the use of federal prisons for private prisons and federal prisons. But the privatization of just about every aspect of the carceral state remains unchanged. And it seems encouraged by the federal government.
All right, let's take a break here. And when we come back, I want to walk through that. What the Smart Communications claimed that they were dealing with, and why their product was necessary, and whether it has had the desired, or I should say the desired or the supposedly desired impact that they had pitched. Hi, I'm Sam Seder. You can watch the rest of this interview and more on our Peacock show, which streams at 5 p.m. weekdays on The Choice from Peacock TV.